Hi, my name is Tim Hunt. I'm the CEO at the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, and we're out at our meeting on the Mesa in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm joined today by my dear friend, Father Kevin Fitzgerald. Kevin, welcome to ARM Studios.
It's great to be with you, Tim, especially on such an exciting occasion with all the breakthroughs that are going on. It's really wonderful to be part of all this.
Yeah, great. Well, and just build on that. How do you, when you think about the field of cell and gene therapy, what do you see? What do you think? What do you think about? Is it cause for alarm and concern, hope, a little bit of both? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting in one sense because for me, it's sort of history repeating itself a little bit, hopefully not completely. And the history I'm referring to, of course, are the genetically modified foods. You know, as a scientist, I can see the amazing advances in the technology and all the possibilities of what you can do. But what we didn't think of at that time, and I think what we need to think of now in particular, are what are the reactions of the people we are trying to help with these breakthroughs? Not just in terms of how excited are you that you might be able to be benefited by these medical technologies, but how might it change your life? And what are your expectations of what your life are going to be after the treatment? And what might be some of the realities that you're not anticipating as a patient or a patient's family or a whole community?
And but suffice to say, in general, with somatic cell, gene therapy, gene editing, cell therapy, you're a fan.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, again, the technologies are, and again, we've been talking about this, back in the 80s, right? French Anderson was talking about severe combined immune deficiency and how we were going to treat that with gene therapy. So in some ways, it's about time, right?
Right.
But in other ways, it's really exciting to be able to actually say these things are here now.
Here now. Yeah, great. Well, we've spent some time in the past, both in Rome, over at the Vatican, because you're very involved in the Pontifical Academy of Life. And we spent some time doing a meeting over there within our community, talking about a number of issues that were important. One of which I know is near and dear to your heart, but also to the Vatican's, is global access.
Yep.
So maybe you could share with us a little bit more. How do you think about that? We could maybe talk about sickle cell disease and some other specific areas.
Well, again, it's interesting. If we stop and think about how we would like to see these technologies ultimately be applied, the answer would be we would like this to get to everybody who needs it, right? And yet we acknowledge and recognize the fact that there are a great many disparities that exist in terms of access to these technologies. So the question is, do we need to take those issues into consideration even as we're at the infancy of rolling out these treatments? Does that have to be part of the conversations that we are having globally? Because otherwise, we exacerbate the difference between the haves and the have-nots, which then again creates divides among communities, makes intercommunication and intercollaboration more difficult, all the sorts of things that we want to work against. And so I think it is extremely important to have meetings like this, to get together and discuss what best practices could we envision? Not that they're here now, but what can we envision? And who then do we bring in as partners to have that discussion and to try to formulate how best we might move forward? And that's why I think the Catholic Church and the Vatican are very interested in being a part of these conversations, which may seem to be a little, strange to some people, but actually, no, it's very much a part of what we try to do.
Well, one of the things you've educated me on is that the Catholic Church is the largest or one of the largest healthcare providers in the world.
We have healthcare providers all around the globe, right? Who have gone out and people have dedicated their lives to caring for the people wherever they are. And in some of the most remote and some of the most difficult to access areas.
Right. Well, and one of the things we talked about when we were over at the Vatican last April, I know, was there are some good early examples of where global access is becoming at least a reality. So Novartis, for example, has Zolgensma available in 50 markets around the world, including atypical markets you would think of like Brazil and Egypt and Ecuador, which is great. And not a lot of people know that. And there are a number of organizations that are working on in vivo sickle cell treatments, which could ultimately be transformative, not just to care of sickle cell patients in the US and Europe, but much more globally. If you think about a world in which you could hook someone up to a line and drip a gene therapy or gene editing regimen into them, which I think would be very powerful.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
A lot of hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so switching gears somewhat. Earlier today, we heard from Dr. Scott Gottlieb, the former FDA commissioner, and he talked a lot about his work, when he was at the FDA, not just of promoting these therapies that are well regulated and where clinical trials are run, but trying to crack down on some of the rogue actors that have been out there, and they've been around seemingly forever. I happened to be in Hong Kong in 2018, when it was announced that Dr. Hay had delivered the world's first genetically modified twins, much to the shock and horror of many of us that were working in the somatic cell gene editing world. How do you see that? There's a world of rogue actors out there, from stem cell clinics to people working on germline editing. Maybe just give us your thoughts on that. The kind of abuses that we see.
So, it's fascinating in from, again, a historical perspective. It was the rogue actors here in the United States that led to the Flexner Report, which sort of completely revolutionized medical education in the US. But at the same time later, Flexner himself said, but then we got too technical. We forgot the humanistic side, right? And the very fact that we're treating human beings, patients with these needs. So it is part of the human scene that we're always going to have to be watching out for those people who just don't seem to care that much about others and are willing to take advantage of anyone for their own ends. Unfortunately, that's the case everywhere. That should not prevent us from bringing the benefits that these technologies can bring to the people who need them.
Right.
So, it's an ongoing human challenge, but it's one that we cannot allow to derail great benefits when they're possible.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for stopping in the studio.
This was great.
Great to see you.
Good to see you, always.
Thanks.
Thank you.